Hey everyone, welcome back to another side-by-side OLED versus OLED video. These are some of my favorite videos to do, and today we're going to be putting up the A80J versus the A90J. Quite a big price gap here. There's no doubt about it that the A90J is in the expensive category. So my goal for this video is to not sell you on the A90J or the A80J, but I'm just simply trying to point out the differences because for a lot of people, this might save some marriages. All jokes aside, there is definitely a huge price gap here, and I feel like when you're looking at a price gap that huge, you really gotta wow me, A90J. And that's kind of how I felt when I went into this side by side. So in this video, I'll have a breakdown of different kind of content where I'll break down each scene. And then there's also going to be content that just plays in the background while I'm talking, kind of like what's happening right now. And ultimately, hopefully that'll help you determine whether or not you should buy one of these TVs or go with something else. So before we go deeper into this side by side, I wanted to mention that if you ever wanted to be a content creator just like me, well then consider checking out my sponsor for today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators to learn new skills and deepen existing passions. You can take classes on how to film, how to edit videos, and even how to make cool graphics for your thumbnails. It's a great way to learn something that you've always wanted to learn. Personally, I'm taking a class from MKBHD himself on filming and editing YouTube videos so that I can get better at this craft myself. I never thought I'd be able to learn tips from MKBHD, which is somebody that I consider a big inspiration with tech videos. So one of the best things about Skillshare is that there's no ads and they always keep updating with new premium classes. It's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, and right now you can get a free trial for the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description. Thanks again to my sponsor Skillshare, and thank you to you for hearing that out. Let's keep going with this side by side, shall we? All right, I want to bring up this side by side right here, and I want to show you that in this still of Aquaman, when you're looking at the A80J, I feel like you're just seeing a deeper picture, a more defined picture here. It is very, very pleasing to the eye, and for whatever reason, the A90J is not mimicking that. It is a big difference in terms of how each TV is handling this scene. Because on one hand, you have the A90J completely like pushing those highlights, and you can see it is clearly brighter than the A80J, and that's what I saw in person as well. And also in person was just that depth that the A80J had that I just felt the A90J didn't capture here. So for me to want to spend that extra amount of money, I would want to have what I see in the A80J image plus what I see in the A90J image. And it seems like maybe the XR processor is picking and choosing its moments. The A90J is clearly enhancing the highlights more than anything. So I'm wondering if that is just going to always give priority over anything else. All right, so here I have another Aquaman comparison, and this is going to be young Aquaman jumping out of the water, kind of in front of the sun, and the A90J is producing this scene in a very bright manner. Now, on the A80J, you definitely feel the ABL. In person more, I see the ABL than what you can see on the screen. It definitely does dim down the screen. So that's just some details you can notice from time to time. Stuff like that really does show the difference in the A90J and the A80J. All right, let's move on. All right, so let's take a look at this scene right here. And I want you to focus on the bright lights in the background. You can see that, and on the A90J, they're really bright. And in person, it looks like a beam of light is on your TV. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. There's no doubt about it. And that is one of my favorite things about this TV is HDR is incredible. I feel like I could tell you confidently that after watching hours and hours on this TV, about 90% And this is just a rough estimate. About 90% of the content that I am watching is going to be pretty close to identical in terms of picture quality. I really think that sometimes the brightness is more of the XR processor just finding these things and highlighting them. And the A80J does this as well. But the A90J could just push it, thanks to that heatsink. So it pushes it to a level that I've never seen on an OLED. And they're both very impressive when it comes to highlights. It's very, very impressive. So now I'm going to give my general thoughts on the A80J and the A90J and kind of just break down a little bit of my opinion on the two. So for the A90J, first and foremost, I want to say that this TV is probably one of the most impressive TVs that I've ever seen in person. And it really sticks out to me when I'm playing it solo, when it's not side by side to the A80J. And I really think that speaks to what both the A80J and the A90J kind of give you. Because while I do feel like the A90J gives me that extra boost in highlights that I don't have with any other OLED TV, I feel like the A80J comes in a good second place most of the time. And sometimes I feel like the A80J even just gives me that depth that I don't have as much of on the A90J for whatever reason, especially when there's highlights involved. Because I feel like when there's highlights involved, sometimes you get a little bit too much of a lift on the highlights, and that might actually affect the whole entire picture. And you really don't see this until it's side by side to the A80J. You won't notice it. And that's something you guys really have to keep in mind here is that I am having these side by side, so I can point out the flaws of each TV. Now, I definitely wanted to make sure that I point out the flaws for the A90J more because that's a big chunk of change to spend over the A80J. And for it to be worth it, you got to give me everything, And sometimes I feel like the A90J doesn't give me everything. It just gives me some really great looking highlights. And it does look very good. Don't get me wrong. I think this is probably the best TV you can buy right now. And I'm not saying the best bang for your buck. I'm saying the A90J is just the best TV that you can buy. That said, the A80J is such a close second place that I feel most people are going to be better off just buying the A80J instead of the A90J. Something that I noticed with the Xbox menu is when you were looking at your game tiles, if you kept it on there for like a good minute or two, and then you switch to another screen that has a similar background, well, then you're going to notice some image retention with those tiles. So take a look at this. You can see if you look at the Cyberpunk icon that it's still on the screen after I switch to the other background. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. And this is something that I only experienced on the A80J. I also experienced it on the C1, but it doesn't happen on the A90J and it happens on the A80J. I just wanted to call that out to people. Now, keep in mind, this is not burn-in. This is image retention. It's very temporary and it goes away pretty quickly. So just wanted to point it out. One thing I got to call out here is that the A90J and the A80J, they share a very similar sound system, but the A90J, the sound is just so much better than the A80J. With the A90J, you also have the ability to hook up a left and right speaker and make your TV the center channel. So that's something that I thought was pretty cool for anybody that is looking to just build onto the sound system in the TV. And trust me when I say this, this TV sounds better than a lot of cheap soundbars. And you really have to spend quite a bit on a soundbar to get better quality than this, in my opinion. So the other thing I really noticed the difference here, and I don't know if this is going to be an exact difference or maybe you can find this on the A90J as well, but the YouTube app that's built into the TV is very buggy for the A80J. I didn't experience this with the A90J, but the A80J oftentimes put the YouTube videos in the wrong color space. and I would be watching an HDR video, and all of a sudden it would be in Rec 709, but the A90J was in BT 2020 like it was supposed to be for the HDR video. So it was kind of weird to see that, but apparently it's even gonna happen on the A90J, because Vincent Tio said in his video that his A90J was doing that as well. So keep that in mind if you are getting one of these two TVs and you're using the YouTube app. You might want to just make sure you're in the right color space, and you can change that in the menu. But if you're on auto, it should default to the right color space. And for it not to do that, then, well, that's a bug, and hopefully they fix that in a future patch. Another thing with the internal apps, and I'm sure this is probably going to apply to both, but only on the A80J did I have apps crashing quite a bit. And to be honest with you, it was Netflix that crashed the most on the A80J. I didn't have the apps crash on the A90J yet, but now that I said it out loud, it's probably going to start crashing when I watch later tonight. But let's hope not. And also wanted to point out that sometimes the Wi-Fi just disconnects for whatever reason on the TV. And I have my A80J and A90J next to each other, but the A90J is always drop in connection. And I don't know. But yeah, it might be me, or it just might be the TV. I don't know. I just wanted to point it out because it's really annoying when it does happen. All right, so in this next example, I wanted to point out the lights in Now You See Me Too. So in this scene, you can see that the A90J is definitely shining these things brighter than the A80J. And this is just one of the many examples that I have of the A90J just coming alive. I mean, it just really takes over and just makes scenes look incredible. And there is really that, that 10% there, when I'm talking about this TV looks almost identical to each other 90% of the time. Well, this is the 10% of the time where it doesn't. And yeah, when it happens, it's spectacular. And I think that is what's going to really take the cake for a lot of people. And they want that extra pop for their scenes. Then the A90J is pretty much unbeatable when it comes to OLEDs. So I guess, yeah, that's the difference, right? The heatsink is the difference here, and we are seeing that when the A90J is doing what it's supposed to be doing, the results are pretty much the best OLED that I've seen personally. Because really, when you think about an OLED, it's not supposed to get bright. That's not the draw. But like with the A90J, that is the draw. Like brightness is the draw here, and you will see it. If you have an A90J, you probably felt it. Like, if you own an A90J, it just hits different, right? And that's how I feel. Like, when I'm playing a game or I'm watching a movie and I see those bright scenes, I'm like, whoa, that's bright. Like, the object in that scene that's bright almost feels blinding at times. It's kind of cool. And I just keep saying that because it's a dope TV. Like, I don't even know how to really put it into words. Honestly, this TV leaves me speechless sometimes. It's crazy that OLEDs have gotten to this point. And I can see why LG is starting to look towards this technology. They're trying to look towards that backplate, that heatsink, because this is the future of OLED. The A90J is the future of OLED. It's right in front of our faces. It's amazing. And I think that if you have the money to get it and you can justify it, no doubt about it, this is a great TV. But for the people that can't really justify it, the A80J is definitely going to fill that void for probably one of the best OLEDs ever made, right? I think that the A80J is definitely close to the level of the A90J. So really, it's up to you. But even with that said, myself personally, later on this year, I'm probably going to go for the A80J just because it's hard to justify that difference, right? And it was like I was mentioning earlier, I want it all. Like, give me it all. Give me the A80J's depth and the A90J's brightness, because I do feel like the A80J has a little bit more depth to the picture. And I don't know if it's because the A90J feels like the black levels are raised at times, but it's weird because I don't know. At times, these TVs look very identical. The XR processor seems to be slipping up sometimes, right? There seems to be some inconsistencies there. But that's to be expected, right? It's a processor that uses AI technology. We all know that that's not perfect. But I have to say that most of the time I do like what the XR technology is doing. I never quite understood why the A90J would sometimes be lacking in terms of quality compared to the A80J in some scenes. Because I know that the A90J is capable of looking better than the A80J because I've seen it. But that's not always the case. Yeah, it's definitely some inconsistencies there, right? There has to be. Otherwise, what am I missing? Sometimes things just don't look the same, but a lot of times they do. I guess that's the point of this video, to show you guys the differences, right? And maybe I've turned into a ramble a little bit, but man, like, who's watching at this point in the video anyway? All right, well, I just wanted to mention that if you are buying one of these two TVs and you're buying from Amazon, please consider using my Amazon affiliate links in the description below. Doing so will help the channel out, and it's at no extra cost to you. So please do consider using those links if you're buying anything from Amazon in the near future. Thank you again so much for watching this video. If you guys do want to see more side-by-side videos just like this, check out the thumbnails at the end of the video. Alright, well, if you guys like this video, make sure you do give it the thumbs up. And also, if you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again so much for watching this video. Have a great day, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.